What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be going over my Season 6 BOULDERCANE build here in Mobalytics. Now, before we get started, I did want to go ahead and update you guys on all the progress I've made with all of my previously posted builds this season. And I did want to mention that I have maxed out my glyphs with all of these builds. However, I do not have perfect aspects on any of my builds. I do not have any of them fully masterworked, and I am missing quite a few key affixes on some of these setups. However, that has not stopped us from clearing tier 90 and above with all of them. So let's go ahead and go over them real quick. So for my landslide build, we have cleared a tier 92 pit, and this is probably one of the closest builds I have to completed in terms of my affixes on my gear, but again, we're missing the aspects as well as having our gear pieces fully masterworked. Then onto my shred build, we have cleared a tier 90 pit pretty easily, and I could probably climb another 1 or 2 pit tiers, but I'm more focused on build creation than I am pit pushing, so I'm actually pretty happy where this build is currently at. And then for the overachiever of the bunch, the Wolves build, which is incredibly powerful this season, we easily cleared a tier 95 pit, and I could have probably cleared at least 2 to 3 more pit tiers before I actually ran into any resistance with this build. So Wolves is one of the better builds for the Druid this season. Now, if you are interested in any of those builds, a link to them will be down in the description of this video. However, let's go ahead and talk about what you're all here for, and that is the BOULDERCANE build. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently than I normally do. Instead of cutting the gameplay footage, I'm just going to throw it up on the screen, and we're just going to go ahead and go over the build to save you guys some time. So for our skills, we're going to be using Boulder as well as Hurricane because it's a BOULDERCANE build. Then we're going to be using Petrify for our ultimate. We're grabbing up Claw just to help maybe generate a little resources as well as keep up our buffs. And then we're going to use Poison Creeper to apply poison so we get the most benefit out of Envenom. And then last but not least, we're going to be using Blood Howl, and this just gives us a little bit more attack speed when we cast it, some survivability, and it also allows us to use those brand new damage buffs we got this season for the Druid. Moving on to our Spirit Boons, it's going to be Weariness on the Deer, we're Spirit Bonded into the Eagle, and we're picking up Iron Feather for the added health, as well as Avian Wrath for the crit damage multi. Then on the Wolf, we're going to be using Pack Leader. Now this is a flex spot, however, I like Pack Leader to reset my Poison Creeper, so I can apply poison a lot easier, especially when we're going up against a lot of elite packs doing pit pushing. And then on the Snake, we're going to be using Obsidian Slam for the extra overpower every time we kill our 10th enemy. Now, before we go on to our aspects and uniques, I did want to go ahead and mention that up here at the top, we do have 3 different setups. The normal setup, then we have the mythic setup, which really just swaps out the Insatiable Fury. And then we have our hardcore mythic bear setup, which I will be using while I play hardcore this season. And really the only difference here is we're swapping out a lot of our willpower affixes for HP affixes. And then we're going to be swapping out 1 glyph for the werebear glyph for the added damage reduction. Now, getting back to our aspects and uniques, we're going to be using Vasily's Prayer on the helmet. Then we're going to be using Insatiable Fury for the chest piece, and again for the mythic setup you just put a shroud here. And then on our gloves we're using the aspect of the metamorphic stone. On the pants we are going to be using the ballistic aspect, however this is a flex spot. If you want, you can use something like Skinwalker, Exploiters, or even Concussive Strikes. Those are all pretty good aspects for the pants. Then on our boots we're slotting in the Storm Shifter aspect. For our 2-hand weapon, that's going to be the aspect of Retaliation. Then obviously our amulet is going to be the Dolmen Stone amulet. Then we're running a Ring of Starless Skies. And then for our second ring, it's going to be none other than the Hunter Zenith ring, which is the MVP ring for the Druid this season, because it gives us easy access to a guaranteed overpower crit with our core skills. Moving on to our gear affixes, for our Vasily's Prayer, I recommend getting the GA to armor first, just because it helps you reach armor cap in tier 4 a lot easier, and then getting your masterwork crits into willpower. Now obviously the best in slot helmet would be a complete set of GAs on this helmet with all of your crits into willpower as well. Then onto our Insatiable Fury, I recommend getting a GA to Ursine Strength and critting that. However, if you do have a Shroud, getting a GA to all stats and critting all stats is your best option. Unless you're going hardcore, which then it would be a GA to HP and then critting HP. Moving on to our glove affixes, it's going to be willpower, lucky hit chance to make enemies vulnerable, a GA to ranks to core skills with all of your crits going there, and then for the temp rings, we're going with earth critical strike chance as well as hurricane size, and that temp ring is a flex spot, so if you want to use something different, be my guest. Then for our pants, we're going willpower with all of our crits there. A GA to armor, again, just to reach armor cap in tier 4, really easy. Then resistance to all elements to help cap out our res. And then our temp rings are going to be total armor as well as hurricane duration. For the boots, we're going for attacks reduce evades cooldown. Then we're going max life, willpower, a GA2 ranks to Boulder with all of our crits there. And then for our temp rings, we're going movement speed as well as more hurricane duration. For the weapon, we're going to be using a 2-hand mace for more overpower damage. However, a 2-hand pole arm is perfectly fine as well. Then we're going to be looking for willpower, max life, lucky hit chance to restore your resources. And then for the temp rings, we're going to be getting earth critical strike chance as well as chance for Boulder projectiles to cast twice. And again, that is just to make it easier for you to maintain those 10 boulders inside of your hurricane to maximize your damage output. Then for our Dome and Stone Amulet, with the way I have this build set up, I recommend going with a GA to ranks to wrath skills and critting that. However, it's perfectly fine to go with Nature Magic cooldown reduction. I just personally don't need it in my build because of how I have the rune words set up. Onto our Ring of Starless Skies, a GA to core skills and getting all of your crits there is what I recommend. However, it's perfectly fine to get a little more attack speed or critical strike chance. It's really up to you. It's whatever you guys need for your builds. And then lastly, for our Hunter Zenith Ring, a GA to ranks to quick shift and getting all of your crits there is probably your best bet. Moving down to our rune words, and again, this is why I'm going with the ranks to wrath skills on my Dome and Stone amulets. So for our first rune word, we're going to be going with Tam and Zal. I think that's how you pronounce that. Don't kill me if I butchered that word completely. And what this does is just give us that extra 20% max life to give us more survivability as well as increase the damage of our overpowered boulders. And then moving on to our second rune word, that's going to be Lith and Yom. And what this is going to do is allow us to keep up that Petrify debuff on our enemies consistently, as well as maintain our resources so that way we can keep casting our Boulder. Then moving on to our gems, we're going to be using sapphires in our armor pieces, followed by all diamonds in our jewelry pieces. Moving on to our skill tree, we're using Claw as well as Enhanced Claw. Then for our core skill tree, we're going 1 point Heart of the Wild into 3 points Wild Impulses. For our defensive skill tree, we're going 3 points Ancestral Fortitude. However, in the Mythic version with the Shroud, you probably only need 2 points into Ancestral Fortitude to cap out your resistances. And then we're going 3 points into Backlash for that nice damage boost we get when we cast a defensive skill. And then we're going 1 point Blood Howl into Preserving Blood Howl for the attack speed. However, if you guys need the extra resources, you can easily swap Preserving Blood Howl into Innate Blood Howl. Moving down to our companion skill tree, we're going 3 points Feral Aptitude, 1 point Poison Creeper, and then 3 points into Clarity. For our Wrath skill tree, we're going 1 point Hurricane into Savage Hurricane. Then we're putting 5 points into Boulder, moving into Natural Boulder. Then we're picking up 3 points into Mending as well as 3 points into Provocation. And you got to be mindful with this buff that when you do reach the time limit to proc Provocation, that you make sure you're casting Boulder with it and not any other skill, because it will overpower with a different skill, which will waste this buff entirely. Then we're going 3 points Crushing Earth into 3 points Stone Guard. Then 1 point Neurotoxin into 3 points Venom. Moving down to our ultimate tree, we're going 1 point Petrify into Supreme Petrify. Then we're grabbing 3 points Defiance, 3 points Natural Disaster, 3 points Resonance, and then 1 point Circle of Life, just to give us a little bit of a heal, but you can swap this anywhere you'd like. Then we're going 3 points into Catastrophe just to get that damage buff when we cast our Petrify. However, do be aware that this does not work with your free cast you get from your rune word. And then we're going 3 points Quick Shift and 3 points Heightened Senses. Then for our key passive, it's going to be Earth Sign Strength. Now moving on to our Paragon boards, like always guys, I put what to prioritize down here in the description box, so go ahead and read through that as you're putting your points into your Paragon board. But for our first board, we're going to be slotting in Earth and Sky here. Then our second board is going to be Earth and Devastation, where we're slotting in Outmatch and picking up the Legendary node for the crit multi. And I like Outmatch here because it makes it really easy to cap out your Earth and Devastation node because of the rare node Crushing Earth that gives you a pretty big bonus to damage to crowd control enemies here. On to our third board, that's going to be Survival Instincts with the Headhunter glyph slotted in here, and we are picking up the Legendary node as well. Then the fourth board is none other than Heightened Malice with our Spirit glyph slotted in here because we have so many Dex nodes close by, and then we're picking up the Legendary node as well to give us that extra damage while we're burning down packs of enemies in the pit. And then for our last board, it's going to be Ancestral Guidance, and we're slotting in the Dominate glyph here as well as picking up the Legendary node Ancestral Guidance. Now on to the last part of our build, and that is the Mercenary, and as always guys, you can use whatever Mercenary you prefer. So for mine, I like to use Subo because he gives you that nice crit damage multiplier when enemies are hit by his cover fire ability. And then for my Reinforcement Mercenary, I like to go with Rahir as well as Bastion because while you're standing inside of this bubble, you cannot be killed, and it makes it really useful when you're pushing into higher tier pits. But that is my BOULDERCANE build here for Season 6, and honestly, this is probably the best overall build for any player trying out the Druid class this season. It's super easy to build into because of how frequent you find GA unique items this season, and it does a ton of damage when compared to other Druid builds, and it also has a lot of survivability. Also, again, I just want to remind you guys that all of my builds I've made this season are down in the description of this video. And if you have any questions whatsoever regarding any of my builds, go ahead and post them down in the comments section and I will answer them as soon as I see them. But that's it for the video, guys. And as always, I hope you guys are having a great day or a great night, depending on wherever you're from. And peace out. I will see you in the next one.